Welcome to Danbury Democrats. My name is John Gogliettino and I'm your host. This evening we're going to be talking to the Mighty Fourth, as they call themselves. We have John Esposito. I laugh because I'm from the 6th. We have John Esposito and Farley Santos, who are the city councilmen in this ward, and they're going to give us a report on what they've been up to as far as the council and their election plans. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, John.
You're welcome.
Us, John.
Okay. But before we get into our discussions, tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in Danbury, a little bit about your family, if you like, but don't go past 2 minutes.
No, I'll keep it short. It is short. I'm 34 years old. I've lived in Danbury, born and raised my whole life. I'm married. My wife, and we have 2 kids, a 4-year-old son, John, the 4th, and my daughter, Daphne. She's about a year old now. And Danbury has been our home our whole lives, like I said, and my wife and I live here in the 4th Ward. We own a house, and we own some rental property. And as far as politics and city and the community goes, our family's been involved.
How'd you get involved?
My grandfather and other relatives have been involved with politics, and I've always been around it as a kid, and it's always something I wanted to do, giving back to the community and serving Danbury and the residents. So it's something that we're very passionate about, almost a family tradition, and we're very happy to do it and continue doing it.
It's in the blood.
It is, yes.
All right, very good. Farley.
John, thanks for having us, first of all. My story is that quintessential Danbury story, really. Family came here when I was 7 years old. I'm a product of the public school system. Went to King Street, where I learned to speak English in an ESL class. Haystown Avenue School, where I finished my elementary schooling. Broadview Middle School, and I went on to Henry Abbott Tech. John and I are both graduates of Abbott Tech. And I work in Danbury. I work for Savings Bank of Danbury. I'm an AVP, Community Development Manager. Wife and I purchased our home. She grew up right on South Street here. She's born and raised in Danbury. 4th Ward her whole life, and we bought our home in the 4th Ward, where we're raising our 5-year-old little girl who's a kindergartner, now going to 1st grade. Big deal, at Shelter Rock. And much like John, community service has always been something that my parents, who adopted me when I was 3 months old and took me into their home, always ingrained in us that giving back to others is important. Public service is a noble calling. So trying to do all you can for your community has always been something that was emphasized at my house. And I'm just proud to be able to serve my city, proud to be able to serve with John, whose family's got a huge record of serving Danbury as well. And we're just trying to do all we can for our neighbors.
Very good. Okay. Now you've just gone through the budget process, and you want to talk a little bit about that? We got some other things we've written down. We'll get into that first.
Yeah, that's our busiest time of the year. Is between April and May. Is when we set the budget. Go over the mill rates. The city municipal budget as a whole is broken down into subcommittees. I serve on Government 1, which overlooks line items like the mayor's office and funding for that. The City Council, the Legislative Assistance Office, also the various authorities like Candlewood Lake Authority. So we really go through all that with a fine-tooth comb, ask our questions.
Make sure there isn't any padding in there, not too much of this. And
yeah, we try to advocate, for moving funds around, the past couple of years, we haven't really been involved that much in the whole process. You know, we're in the minority as the Democratic Party, so, you know, we don't really have the votes to make any changes, you know.
Is it still the same, for people that don't know out there, I have an idea, but if there's 14 votes and the mayor proposes a budget, if all 14 vote that way, then the mayor's budget pretty much gets approved.
Yes.
Without a line-by-line review, unless they want to have that line-to-line.
It's broken down into the subcommittees. Like I said, you know, each subcommittee is individually voted on, but it's not line by line, really. But yes, you know, motions could be made to go through certain lines if a member of the city council would like to do that.
Right. Okay, Farley, would you talk about what committee you were on? And
Sure. I was on General Government 2. This was my first budget cycle on the City Council. Just for your viewers to get some perspective, I served on the Board of Education, as you know. I filled a vacancy there, then I was elected to a full term there. And I've been through the Board of Ed side of the budget a couple of times, and then moving into the role of councilman, filling for Tom Sadi, who resigned earlier this year. It was different, you know. For me, it was different to be able to go through this process. But you know, General Government 2 covered, you know, city treasurer, tax collector, very similar to what John was on. But again, just looking at
different offices,
yeah. Looking at the different needs in each office, and making sure that you identify that the needs are true and viable. And so that was how the process worked for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, infrastructure, the roads, for example, that's always been a major issue. It's an issue with a lot of people, no matter where you are, whether you're the 4th, 5th, or 6th. I hear the most, you know, from people in my own ward, but that's because they've been underworked on, to say the least.
They're getting really beat up. You know, I've raised an issue earlier this year about how to deal with some of these large trucks that are driving on our roads. You know, we're getting a lot of them. You know, we're still working on, you know, ways to handle that. And they get beat up in the, you know, regular winters, you know, with the snow and the ice, you know, getting potholes and breaking them up. But we were proud to, earlier this year, allocate $1.7 million additional funding to increase road paving. So they're going to be starting to pave roads around this time. You're going to see a lot of roads getting paved. Wood Street.
During the summer months, you mean? Because
the summer going into the fall.
Right.
You know, the Public Works Director tells us. In the ward here, we had Wood Street last year paved, and the state was good enough to pave Newtown Road, going partially down to the intersection at the bottom of the hill there, just in front of Wood Street, and even trying to get a little bit of Old Shelter Rock Road. I've been advocating for that for a while, and we're going to continue to do so, because that's a heavily utilized corridor. Although it's a narrow road,
right.
It's almost like going off-roading on that street. Right. So, yeah, we're going to advocate every bit as possible to get all our roads in our ward paved, and you know, throughout the city too as well. We've done other advocating, working with our colleagues on the city council.
Have you had any particular roads that you advocated for, even though you've been on a shorter time? Yeah. I understand that.
Well, you know, living in the neighborhood, obviously, and working within Danbury, I work on the other side of town. You go through the roads, John, and you're absolutely right, and so is John, that this issue affects Danbury throughout, you know, the whole city. And aside from roads, infrastructure, you know, I think we also need to look at, John and I talk about this often, that we need to look at all the other aspects of infrastructure. Roads are what we see and what we feel every day because we're driving on them, but there are things that we don't see. We had just had a stormwater drain issue here in our ward on a Friday night. The Public Works folks are amazing. They came out on a Friday night. It took them a few hours to close the road, patch the issue there. But the underground issue, that underlying issue, no pun intended there, is the fact that we haven't made some significant investments in the underground infrastructure that we have. There was a pipe there for 50 or 60 years that just basically corroded. Yeah. So we haven't had those kinds of...
And they failed. If you don't work, if they're that long, they can go any time.
So we're at a stage where we're more reactive as opposed to being proactive, and we understand that there's a cost to that. But you know, we also need to understand that there's a long-term goal for our city, and we keep expanding, right? 2016 census said that Danbury had 83,000 residents, an estimate. We're looking at 98,000 by 2040. How are we going to be able to maintain that and substantiate that with services and a city that is viable for all 98,000 residents in 2040? So we need to start planning out a little bit better.
Yeah, additional infrastructure. We're working on getting some bridges repaired. Triangle Street Bridge is going to be starting some repairs in the beginning of the summer here. The Public Works was waiting for the schools to be let out. Middle River Road across town, there's a bridge there that's going to be getting paved, as well as Crosby Street and also the Kennedy Avenue Bridge. And you know, other infrastructure like the wastewater treatment plant, we all know, you know, is going to cost the city around $100 million. Farley and I are going to be taking a tour of that facility to see what's going to be upgraded and, you know, ask questions, you know, make sure that service to the residents is not going to be interrupted. And we're going to just proceed along with that.
Did you already get some bids? Or you just have it, it's like an educated guess?
Been out to bid already. You know, we're also applying for grants. You know, this is a federally mandated thing, you know, that's being brought upon us.
So half of it might be Fed or 25% or whatever.
From the Fed and also from the state government.
Right.
You know, there's some grants that are available to us through there. We haven't gotten any of them yet, but they're being applied for.
Because $100 million is a lot for our homeowners.
It's a lot of money, but
yeah.
I'd argue that it's one of the most important pieces of infrastructure we have.
Well,
because that's how we flush their toilets. That's where the water goes,
yeah.
and it's going out to.
We want to make sure our water is drinkable.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going right into the river system. You know, once it's treated and deemed, you know, potable, you know, to be released into the natural water system, you know, the rivers. So we've got to get the phosphorus content down and be in compliance with federal law in that aspect.
How many bridges would you say that are still you still need to work on? Because at one time it seemed to be all the bridges around town, and a lot of people don't know there's an area. I didn't know there was a bridge there because it's so well concealed, but with the vegetation and stuff, they can't even see that there's a bridge.
A lot of parts of our roads, you know, the Still River runs right through Danbury like a piece of silly string. It's just all over the city. And there's a lot of short bridges that, yeah, like you said, are covered by vegetation, so you don't even know you're on a bridge.
It might be the size of this room.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And,
as far as how many bridges need repair, you know, I don't even know if anybody in the city
even knows for sure.
would know for sure, yeah, but we are at least addressing the bridges that need immediate attention, like the ones I mentioned.
That are showing things, or people are hitting
Yeah.
potholes.
Those are
there's
heavily
nothing there.
used bridges, especially the Triangle Street Bridge. So, you know, they're going to be getting some repair work.
Now, every councilman gets neighborhood issues, even the people at large, except when you're at large, you get them from all over all the neighborhoods, sometimes all in the same week. But any particular interesting issues that you've had, you know, starting with John?
Starting this time of year, we get a lot of noise complaints. You know, we've had, you know, some firework noise going on. You know, people start with loud music. And, you know, what we did recently was we reached out and we spoke to Chief Rittenhauer, Chief of Police, and we're getting and have gotten an increase in police patrolling our neighborhoods here in the 4th Ward. You know, for a variety of other reasons too. Nothing I want to alarm the public about, but, you know, mostly noise issues, and we've had break-ins around the holiday season, but those have been really heavily monitored, and we work closely with the police department on those issues. You know, our biggest issue, you know, is the transfer station, garbage transfer station. You know, that's always an issue that we've been dealing with and have been dealing with even before I was on the city council. Right now,
That's been going on for years.
over 11 years, yeah. And we work, and Farley's been on board with us since he got on at the beginning of this year. We've been in close contact and kept lines of communication open with the city lawyers. Right now, to simply put it, it's before the state appellate court, and it's probably going to take a good year for a decision to be reached. So we're going to patiently wait and keep advocating, keep the neighborhood updated and informed.
Okay. Do you have any?
Yeah, much of what John just said. You know, John and former Councilman Tom Sadi worked diligently and very hard on this waste transfer station issue. As a constituent, I was part of their team of folks in the neighborhood that went out and collected over 1,000 signatures from neighbors in the ward who are against this waste transfer station just because of the detriment that it's going to have to our roads, most importantly to the safety of our kids. We're talking about you know, hundreds of trucks.
Maybe for those that are new in town, you can expound. Big trucks going into that area and coming out are going to wear the roads.
Absolutely.
But can you get into where it actually is?
Sure. So,
for the new people?
Yeah, so it's on Plumtrees Road there, and we're talking about traffic, added traffic, if you can think about that, on Newtown Road, but then also trucks going through Shelter Rock Road right there by Shelter Rock School. My daughter, who goes to school there, I see, you know, dozens of kids walking home from school, so there's that issue as well there, a safety issue. Yeah,
signs.
you know.
They're fine for cars, but they're bringing in major trucks.
Bottom line, it's a quality of life issue.
Yeah.
We've got many residents that live on the other side there of Shelter Rock who would oversee this area, and it would be a quality of life issue for them.
Right.
So, you know, the work that they've been doing, John and I will continue to do and stand up with our constituents who are adamant that this is not something we want to see in our ward.
Now, we talked about noise before, but I wanted to finish up with yourself. Sure. How does the noise ordinance work? Because that's been changed several times during my lifetime, and currently, how does it work? Do you get to like 1 o'clock, and that's when, or you still bring out the truck and you got the, they're listening, the listening device to see just how loud the noise is, and if it's a Saturday or Sunday night, they give you an extra hour, but if it's during the week, they cut it off at 12 or something.
Well, we've got the noise busters out there, right? The guys that are in charge of making sure that folks aren't going above and beyond. Recently, we've had a lot of those issues down at Rogers Park, and even though that's not in the 4th Ward, John and I have heard a lot of constituent concerns about that. And even though it's not in the 5th, we still act on it. Or it's not in the 4th, it's in the 5th, we'll still act on it. But, you know, it's just a decent decorum, right? I mean, after a certain time, you shouldn't be playing loud music.
Is it 11 o'clock? Is it 12 o'clock? It depends on the day.
It starts at 9 o'clock.
Right.
Okay, between the hours of 9 and 7 a.m., you're supposed to keep noise to a reasonable level, no loud noises. And I encourage residents that if you have a neighbor or somebody in your neighborhood that's making noise of any kind,
loud party or something,
call the police, call 311. Yep. You can call Councilman Santos or myself. And if you want to remain anonymous, we'd be happy to make those calls for you. Because not everybody wants to have an issue with their neighbor or make a complaint against them. You have to live next to them after all. So we'll be happy to handle any business like that for you. And you're right, the noise ordinance has kind of evolved over time. And yeah, we have the noise buster. He usually is out on patrol during the warmer months. He's not patrolling during the winter months, but certainly the police will always respond, for any kind of issue. And fines are issued, if there's repeat offenders, and also if more than one person, calls and complains about an individual, fines can actually be increased. I think a first offense is like $25, and a repeat offense is probably, I think, $75. And if there's a major noise issue and multiple people have complained, you can get a fine as high as $250, I believe.
Yeah, so it seems like you put some teeth into it compared to what it used to be.
Yep.
Before you had to do a lot more proving, and you had a lot more. They used to wait till 11 o'clock on the weekends, and then it would be 12 before they shut them down, and there was a lot more rope.
Yeah, as John said, the chief of police, Chief Ridenour, Deputy Chief McColgan, they've been very receptive to the fact that we contact them and say, look, we've got constituent complaints here. What can we do? And they act on it right away. And it's not a matter of of overdoing it. It's just a matter of decency. It's a matter of respecting the rights of themselves as well, but the neighbors. You know, it's again quality of life issue.
Right. Now, we've got something about increased police patrols. Has crime been going up? Because our crime in the past, you know, they've talked about it, you know, in national magazines saying that crime is pretty good in Danbury. It's not...
It's good, yeah, but there's always issues going on. And crime, in fact, has decreased over the last, you know, from this time last year, it's gone down. And obviously that's a credit to our great police department.
Absolutely.
And all the hard work they do.
So the increased patrols, you can say, have happened this past year?
They're a result at our request, you know, for certain issues. You know, we had some, you know, fireworks going off, you know, pretty early in the year. I mean, we all like fireworks, but at 9 o'clock at night on a weeknight, I don't think anybody really likes fireworks.
Yeah, because people got to get up in the morning and they're getting ready for bed. And if I'm going to bed, they're going to be going to bed soon. And
yeah, and we're both parents of young children, so we can identify with the people out there that have young kids. Most young kids are sleeping, if not going to sleep around that time.
Exactly.
So it raises that issue. And as a result of, like I said earlier, around the holidays, there was a slew of some car break-ins, and we quickly addressed that issue. Councilman Santos wasn't on the city council at the time, Sadi was, but absolutely, anytime an issue like that comes to our attention, we advocate for increased patrols, and the police department's pretty responsive. You know, they work well with us. The only thing is we need is feedback. You know, if people know about something going on, just call us. You know, my line's open all the time, 24/7.
You're not a mind reader. You have to know that something's going on.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not just about the crimes like you're describing there. Sometimes it is, you know, someone speeding down the road consistently, and someone brings it up to us. So we'll address that. We'll contact the authorities. The police department, like John said, has done a great job. One of the things that they've taken that has helped Danbury is community policing. Being involved in the community, being involved with the citizens, running the Citizens Police Academy, which I was part of a few years ago, gives you a real
Excellent
insight.
program.
It is a great program.
Yeah.
Gives you excellent insight to what their job is really like. Everyone has this preconceived notion.
And that's open to the public.
It is open to the
people
public,
that
yeah.
have the time to do that.
I think they're running their 27th session now.
Okay.
Lieutenant Daniello and Sergeant Antonelli.
What is that,
run
once a year or is it twice a year?
I think now they're doing twice a year. That's, you know, the demand has been so great, but that has been a great way to integrate the community, to be able to see what it's like to be on their side, or on their view point. But aside from that, you know, that they've done great work in just trying to be present in the community, being involved with folks, and that's made a difference.
Now, there's a city website, so if people are looking for things like Police Academy or places to call having to do to different issues,
Yep.
Whether it's a zoning issue, whether it's a building issue, and so forth, what is the website, and is there a general number? Well, the 311 number.
311 is a great way to contact.
Helpline. If anyone can just Google, you know, City of Danbury, danbury-ct.gov. Is another resource as well.
The individual departments are still up there,
Individual
right?
departments are listed,
Yeah.
and you can contact, you know, you've got the name and phone number of folks that you can contact right in from each department on there as well.
Okay, I was going to ask you about something, but while we're thinking about it, maybe later on, individually speaking, if you could give and do it slow, because people don't have a pen right by the, you know, there's chair or whatever. Your telephone number and an email.
Absolutely.
So if people want to contact you individually as their council people, starting with John.
Yeah, I can be reached anytime, and I encourage you to call me whatever time of the day it is. I work as a plumber, so I'm used to getting calls well late into the night. I can be reached directly at 203-648-0365, and if you'd rather email me at johnesposito03@yahoo.com, I'll certainly respond pretty quickly that way as well.
Okay, Farley.
Same for me. I'm available whenever the constituents need me. They can contact me on my cell phone at 203-297-2174, or my personal email is farleysantos89@gmail.com. We also have our own team email there, which is Esposito Santos 4th Ward @gmail.com. And again, just like John said, we're here to serve you. So we want to hear from you. I personally want to hear what's on your mind, issues that are of interest to you and importance to your neighborhood. We definitely want to hear from you on that as well. But feel free to contact us anytime.
We got a couple of minutes, and then we'll repeat that information again. But tell us a little bit about the fire department. How's the fire department, and anything you'd like to talk about with fire department issues? I know that they are backup, the ambulance service. If there's ever a need, they go out as a backup.
We have a great ambulance service that I was recently told responds to almost 95 or more % of the calls they get, which saves the city a lot of money. So really a big congratulations and a thank you to them for doing that. And the fire department.
Fires are down, right?
Fires, yeah, are reasonably down. You know, I mean, this time of year, you know, we're getting into the summer months, people have backyard campfires, so, you know, do your research, you know how to handle them, how to put them out, save yourself from, you know, any potential disastrous situation. And one issue that I've known has been going on with the fire department is there's been some talk, has been starting about consolidating some of the volunteer houses. So, you know, I haven't had a chance to really talk to a lot of these houses. I've talked to a handful of volunteer firemen. You know, there's some that think it's a good idea and some that don't necessarily like the idea.
I'm sorry, but we're running short on time. We got a minute, and I want to have your telephone numbers and emails again, and then we got to go off.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Farley.
So mine, once again, is 203-297-2174. That's my cell phone number. Feel free to reach me at any time. Again, we want to hear from you. We want to hear what's on your mind. We're here to serve you. So 203-297-2174.
Yeah, maybe just the telephone
John
number.
as well.
Yeah.
They're starting to wave to me. Go ahead.
All right.
Telephone number.
It's 203-648-0365.
All right, they're waving goodbye. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
coming on
Thanks
the
for
show.
doing this.
And thanks the viewers for tuning in. Danbury Democrats, good night.